Hi everybody, and welcome to this S.P.L.A.Sh lesson. In this lesson, we'll be learning about life versus litter, where we will learn about the ecosystems around us, how they are affected by litter, and how we can help. Let's start off with a lesson in ecology. Have you ever heard of the word biodiversity? Bio means life, and diversity means variety. So biodiversity means biological diversity, and is the variety of life found in a place. An ecosystem is a community of interacting organisms and their environment. Healthy ecosystems require balance and variety of living things. Think about the food chain. Plants need nutritious soil, insects eat plants, birds eat insects, and carnivores eat birds, then expel those nutrients, which eventually become soil for plants. Every living thing depends on other living things in the area. These connections, along with the environment they occur in, make up an ecosystem. Often, a change in one part of the ecosystem can affect the community as a whole. For example, here's an extremely simple food web. To see what happens when there is a small change in the system, let's say there are far fewer birds. Maybe they've been poached or lost their nesting habitat, or their populations have been reduced in some other way. Well, without the birds, first of all, the skunk, who usually predates the birds, has nothing to eat. So the skunks starve and their population decreases greatly. The vulture is probably hungrier without the skunk, but it can survive off of the other foods that it eats. Now, without any birds to predate them, the grasshopper population multiplies out of control, far beyond what it usually is. And since grasshoppers eat grass, a huge swarm of grasshoppers now eat all of the grass, which causes the mice to starve, followed by all the animals who depend on them. So with that, we've taken out about half of the food web just by removing one piece of the puzzle. But what if we had more biodiversity? Another bird who filled a similar place in the web. The first bird might be poached or lose its nesting habitat again, but there will be another bird to take its place, and the whole system doesn't collapse. This is all a very simplified way of showing you why biodiversity can be beneficial to a food web and an ecosystem. So now you see why ecosystems require a variety of animals and other living things. Everything is connected to everything else. But why do we as humans need biodiversity in the world around us? Well, ecosystems and the living things in them provide us with essential things like food, clean water, and oxygen. They also control disease, give us medications, and recycle dead things. Plus, ecosystems and living things just make us happier. Imagine only ever seeing one type of plant in your area, or no plants at all. Healthy ecosystems and biodiversity are incredibly important to our survival and happiness. We must protect biodiversity to keep the system running smoothly. Now, this isn't to say that changes in the ecosystem are always bad or unnatural. In fact, ecosystems are always changing, and sometimes those changes have huge effects on certain species. When a species dies off entirely with no surviving members to create future generations, it is known as extinction. Extinction is a natural part of life. No species lasts forever. Think about the dinosaurs, for example, which were part of a mass extinction about 65 million years ago. Mass extinctions are the result of huge changes in the ecosystem or from big events like a giant meteor hitting the Earth. There have been at least 5 mass extinctions on our planet, and today we are experiencing another mass extinction, mostly due to human activities. It's hard to know the exact extinction rate currently because we're always discovering new species, and it's hard to tell which ones are endangered and which ones are doing fine and which ones are already extinct. Regardless, scientists already know that today's extinction rates are hundreds or even thousands of times higher than they should be. Scientists believe that it was industrialization that actually drove up the extinction rates. And since the start of industrialization in the 1800s, tens of thousands of species have gone extinct. This includes birds like the Labrador duck, insects like the Rocky Mountain locust, mammals like the Tasmanian wolf, fish like the deepwater Cisco fish, flowers like the Hawaiian chaff flower, and many, many other species. Now let's look at what effects humans have had on the ecosystem. Humans have had a huge effect on biodiversity. We take valuable resources from the environment, like wood, fish, and land, and throw the ecosystem out of balance in the process. We then pollute the environment with chemicals and trash, further ruining the environment. Thousands of species have gone extinct as a result, and we will never be able to get them back. But don't despair. We still have a chance to save the planet and the organisms that live here. There are many things you can do to help biodiversity and prevent more extinctions. Prevention, recycling, removal, and policy and management are all things that we can do to help the environment. Prevention means preventing trash from entering the environment. You can do this by using fewer products that create trash. You can avoid these products altogether or use products that are reusable, like reusable bottles, bags, etc. Recycling means looking up what items are recyclable in your area, and then when you use those items, you wash them out and then recycle them. And companies making products don't have to create new plastics, they just use plastics that have already been recycled. Removal means picking up trash from the environment, and you can do this on your own, in your own neighborhood, picking up trash, or you can join a bigger cleanup, for example, a beach cleanup. Policy and management are big-scale changes made by the government or citizens like you who want more responsible policies to limit the amount of plastic and other litter that enters the environment. And finally, be aware of where your trash is going. In this lesson, we will be focusing on how trash affects ecosystems and biodiversity in a coastal environment. To show an example of the importance of biodiversity, let's take a look at birds in particular. Birds play a very important role in our ecosystem. Some birds, like hummingbirds, interact with plants and are pollinators. Other birds, like bluebirds, eat insects and keep them from overeating the plant life. Still others, like owls, eat mice and snakes and control their populations. On the beach, shorebirds tend to eat fish, small crustaceans, mollusks, and other invertebrates. Adult shorebirds are not usually prey for other animals, but their eggs and chicks are often eaten by coyotes, crabs, gulls, and many other animals. Shorebirds can serve as an indicator species for the ecosystem. An indicator species is an organism that serves as a measure of the environmental conditions. The presence and health of certain species suggests how well the ecosystem is doing or if things are out of balance. Shorebirds are an indicator species for a few reasons. Their reproductive success depends on them finding suitable habitat for their nest, being able to properly incubate their eggs, and their eggs being left uneaten by predators. If the shorebird populations are declining, it could be because one or all of these factors have been unsuccessful. Fewer successful shorebird chicks might indicate that the tide levels are rising, which washes away eggs, or that there are too many introduced predators like domestic cats, or that there is too much disturbance such as human activity, or lots of other things. Let's take a look at the life cycle of one of these shorebirds to see the dangers that they face at each life stage. The American oyster catcher is a large shorebird with a long orange bill, brown, black, and white feathers, and long pale legs. They probe the sand and search reefs for clams, oysters, and other mollusks, which they then open by cutting or smashing. During high tide, they rest in their roosts, and they are very loud, alert, and finicky. They are commonly seen on bay islands and occasionally beaches. In this environment, they prefer shells to nest on. Artificial beaches, such as dredged spoil islands with lots of oyster shells, also work for nesting and roosting. American oyster catchers are monogamous and sometimes remain paired with the same mate for many years. Males tend to be territorial and will nest in the same area year after year. The American oyster catchers will make their nests by scraping out a shallow bowl in the sand or shells called a scrape. The female will lay 2 to 3 eggs in the nest, and then she and the male will take turns incubating the eggs 24 to 28 days. Incubation is when the adult bird sits on the eggs to keep them the right temperature and protect them. During this time, the eggs are very vulnerable because they can't move or protect themselves. They can be eaten by predators, washed away by waves, overheated, or underheated. The chicks can usually walk within a few hours of hatching. They will walk around and feed themselves like adults, but they won't be able to fly for a few weeks. In that time, they will grow as big as a small adult. When chicks learn how to fly, we call them fledged. The chicks are less vulnerable than the eggs because they can walk and move away from waves or over into the shade, but they are still easy prey for predators and can be killed relatively easily by overheating or being taken by a storm or other disturbances. When the chicks are fledged, they are much less vulnerable. They can get away from predators and waves. They can thermoregulate so that they can't overheat or freeze so easily. And if they're disturbed by something on the land, they can just fly away. One of the top threats to adult American oyster catchers is marine debris. Marine debris is any solid, long-lasting trash in the ocean or on the shore. The adult American oyster catchers get tangled in the trash as they walk. This can lead to death by starvation because they can't hunt, or death by infection if the trash causes wounds. As you can tell, the American oyster catcher is a very vulnerable species, especially when they are young or in eggs. Rising tides means that the eggs are washed away. Habitat loss means nowhere to nest, which means no eggs. Introduction of new predators, such as cats, means far fewer offspring, and human disturbance makes the adults panic and fly away, which overheats the eggs and chicks. It is because these birds are so sensitive that they are called indicator species. Population decline within the indicator species points to bigger problems. They are like the canaries in the mine. If they die, it means there's trouble ahead for others. While other species might not be declining as quickly as the indicator species, they will also suffer if we don't fix the problems that are affecting the indicator species. Now let's talk about pollution and wildlife. Pollution is the introduction of harmful materials into the environment. Many harmful materials, or pollutants, are created by human activity. This includes trash, runoff, exhaust, and an array of other things. Pollutants damage air, water, and land, as well as the living things residing there. There are many different types of pollution. Pesticides and fertilizers damage the land and can kill animals living there. Oil spills in the ocean poison some aquatic animals and coat others. Most air pollution is caused by burning oil, coal, and other fossil fuels. Pollution harms humans as well. Some pesticides and fertilizers seep into our produce and cause cancer. Polluted animals are eaten and cause internal damage as well. Drinking polluted water can cause death or injury, and polluted air can cause shortness of breath and lung cancer. The list goes on and on. Every living thing depends on safe air and water. Because of all the air, water, and land pollution, living things are suffering, including us. One of the most damaging types of pollutants is simple garbage. Let's take a look at what damage it can cause in an ecosystem. Marine debris is any persistent, solid material that is manufactured or processed and intentionally or unintentionally disposed of or abandoned into the marine environment. When trash makes it into the ocean or fishing gear is abandoned, it is called marine debris. This debris can do a lot of damage to animals in the water and on the shore. Aquatic animals can eat trash thinking that it's food, and it can clog their entire digestive tract, making them starve to death. They often get so tangled in the trash that they starve to death because they can't hunt. Or if they breathe air, like dolphins and turtles, they get so tangled that they can't come up to the surface, and so they drown. On the shorelines, marine debris causes the same kinds of problems. Fishing line especially is a problem for animals on the shore. It is easy to get tangled in, difficult to see, and almost impossible to untangle or bite through. The line can dig into an animal's skin and cause infection and death. Or if it's wound around the wings or feet, it can prevent the animal from hunting and cause it to starve to death. Fishing line entanglement is one of the most common causes of death among adult American oyster catchers. There are so many ways that you can help reduce ocean pollution. You can refuse single-use plastics or reduce how much you use them. Things like disposable bottles, bags, and utensils are very easy to avoid and replace with reusable alternatives. You can rethink your plastic so that you use less of it. For example, when you go through a drive-through, you can think to ask for your order without a straw or plastic utensils. You can also participate in local cleanups, such as at the beach or waterways, like one of our splash cleanups. If you fish, you can dispose of any lines or nets properly so that they don't entangle anybody. If you do use any plastic, you can recycle it. And of course, you can share all of the knowledge that you learned today about how to recycle, how to reduce, how to reuse, and how to protect the environment. Thanks for watching this Splash lesson. I hope you're motivated to clean up the ocean and shorelines around you and protect biodiversity. Thanks for watching.